Okay, hello, welcome. Welcome back. Where is everybody today? It's air conditioned in here. It's nice. Okay, so today, oops, I'm on the wrong slide already. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Android Maps, Google Maps, the API, how to use it, how to create programs with it, longitude, latitude, all of the other things associated with GPS maps and things of that nature, how to test it, how to write it, and then I'm also going to talk about the DDMS, Debug Manager System, and the communication between the development tools and the emulators. And today I actually have to use the built-in emulators. I can't use my VirtualBox because my VirtualBox image doesn't support maps and it doesn't support Google APIs is what the problem is. And the reason why is because you even have to run a separate VM, virtual machine emulator, that supports the Google APIs when you create your project. And I'll show you that as well when we start looking at the code. I have 3 programs, and I haven't put them out yet, but I'll make them available. When I'm all done, I have to clean it up a little bit, zip them up, and make them available so you can run them on your computer. However, you're going to have to make changes to them because you're going to need to create your own API key. You'll need to figure out how to do that, and I'll show you how today. So the topic for today is Android and location and the maps. So your phone actually keeps track through a GPS signal. Also can keep track through, and actually here's the interesting thing. So there's a couple of different ways this works, and you have to enable it on the phone. You don't have to use the GPS hardware. If you use the GPS hardware, most people find that their battery dies prematurely. So if you're testing this on your real phone, which you can actually do if you don't like the emulators, unfortunately I didn't have a phone with me. Still don't have the phone with me. What happened to my phone? Oh, here's the phone. The phone's probably not going to work, actually. I forget that. Phone's probably not going to. I just got my phone back like 5 minutes ago. So I'll have it ready for next week, but it's probably dead. Probably not going to work. But long story short, you can use the internet, and you can also use what's called a Google Map. Well, it's part of the internet connection using a Google Locator service. And there's several different options that you can use. The GPS is going to be the fastest and the most reliable and the most up-to-date. The internet's going to be slower, but it's not going to wear your battery down as much. And maybe your phone doesn't have a really good GPS in it, or maybe you're in an area in which it doesn't support, where you can't find a signal. Long story short, everything is associated with your location. Your phone keeps track of your location automatically for you, and I have a program that's going to show you through the emulator how you can simulate that on an emulator, actually. And it's all working with longitude and latitude. And this is not a geography course, but the longitude and latitude determine your location, if I said that correct. And they're determined by, latitude is north-south of the equator, and longitude is east-west of Greenwich, which means absolutely nothing to me. I go on to an internet website, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, and I type in the address of where I want the longitude and latitude from, and it tells me. And I cut and paste that, and I put it in the program. I go, oh, now I'm in Sunnyvale. Now I'm in San Jose. Otherwise, your phone keeps track of this automatically for you, and you can call to it. And it's called a location service. It runs as a background process. It keeps track of your location all the time if you have the GPS turned on, which is probably why the battery doesn't work as well that way. You always have the internet running constantly, though, so it's no problem for the longitude and latitude to be kept that way. So. And where in California are you? What's the latitude and longitude of California? Well, if you click on this, let's see if this works actually. California is east of London, and it's 30 degrees north, 0 degrees east. Well, here's earthtools.org that will show you where you are. Let's see if it works actually. It may not necessarily be the internet connection at this point. I have a lot of stuff running. I've loaded an emulator in the background on this computer. So, okay. Let me show you another location. There's one. This is what I was referring to. So it's here's the URL. ITO, we're actually here in the zoom in so you can actually see. itouchmap.com, lat long HTML. if you go to this particular URL and you type in 355, here it is right here, West San Fernando Street. Let me zoom out so you can see what I'm looking at. And you hit go. That's a little point on a map, and it tells you the longitude and latitude. That's how you're probably going to calculate that. Why you need that? Because you need to sometimes set a starting location in your program. Or perhaps you need to figure out, well, pull it from the location on the service, pull it from the location and set the longitude and latitude on my map so I can put a pinpoint exactly where I'm at. That way I can see the street and I can see all of the information around it. What you're going to do with the map program is up to you. There's many different reasons you want to have this ability on your application. It could be that you want to perhaps give directions from use the services. In fact, if that were the case, I would use the built-in services. I wouldn't bother with a map. You might want to put objects on the map, and those are called overlays, and I'll show you about that in a few minutes. In fact, even this program here is doing the same concept. This here is an overlay showing the location of the building that we're at, actually, at this longitude and latitude. But actually, all you have to do is go into a web browser and type in, go into Google or Yahoo and type in longitude and latitude. And there's a ton of these little utilities out there, so there's no shortage of utilities to find your way. Okay, let me minimize this now. Actually, let me shut this for a second. Shut that for a second. Okay, so we're back here. That probably does work. That URL, I just couldn't get it to load for some reason. So when using the Google API for location, you select the API for the new project using the maps and location, and otherwise your app won't run if you're using the wrong API. So I'll show you that in a few minutes as well. So you have to use the right emulator and you have to use the right API, otherwise what ends up happening is you got a situation in which you don't have accessibility to the Google tools. So when we went originally, let me just tell you what I'm talking about actually. When we went originally, oops, hold on one second, let me get rid of this lecture for a second. In Eclipse, when we went originally, I downloaded the information that we needed for the Android SDK. If we go into the SDK manager, this is what I'm referring to, where it says, let me zoom in a little bit, you need the Google APIs installed for the emulator that you're working with. And you're also going to need in fact, at this point in the course, this is when you're going to start loading more information, or loading more of the SDKs, because what you're going to need is for each one of the emulators that you're going to use, if you're going to use mapping, text messaging, Google Talk, any of the Google APIs, which are separate add-on objects that you can create, as an example, an object of the map view that you're going to use. It's not part of the standard SDK, it's part of the Google API. So you need to actually install the Google API. So here I have it installed, and actually I had to do this on mine because I didn't have it installed. You're going to want to support the emulators as well. The ARM emulator here is the one that's going to run the Google API for the maps that I'm going to demonstrate with you. And I loaded on the current one, actually, just so I could show you what the current one looks like. If you want, you can go down here on the bottom, and I've got one that's loading on 1.5. This actually runs a lot faster. It's smaller files, faster running emulator. Because it's supported by Google APIs, and I do not have the Google APIs on my VirtualBox emulator, which is why I'm doing it this way. If you're lucky, and I haven't found it yet, you can actually find an emulator image, an ISO image that supports the Google APIs. But then you don't have the debug tools. What are the debug tools? Let me show you that. Well, now that I'm out here at a prompt, let me show you that too, before I go back to the boring lecture. What I have running here, let me just minimize a few things to make this a little easier here, is Eclipse. And I have an emulator running back here, and I loaded up my map location actually on here. I'll load that again once I go through the program. And I tested it earlier and actually sent myself a text message up here. Let's see if it works. There's a message up here. Hello. If you click with your mouse although it's not working that well. If you click with your mouse, you can actually pull down the notifications. You can see that there's a message up there, right? And here's how I actually did it. So what we've been working with so far is this Eclipse interface, working with the emulators, getting it all to work, you know, using these tools. If you look up in the right-hand side, you'll see some other options. What I'm going to show you today is called the DDMS. And the DDMS is the debug machine system, whatever. I'm sure it's called something else. I'm just saying it wrong. I can't remember right now what this is actually called. I refer to it as the DDMS, and I call it the debug machine, the debug interface. What do I have in here? I have a bunch of stuff that you'll probably never mess with. I kind of tried to zoom it in a little bit. In the far right-hand side of the screen, which I've made bigger, and I can actually make it smaller so it all fits, what you're going to see is a list of the running devices. And I can see that I have this emulator 554. I'm running on port 554, and I called it Google Maps 4, and it's online, which means it's working. I can actually communicate with the emulator through the DDMS. I can send it text messages, I can simulate phone calls, I can send it longitude and latitude, I can send it a bunch of stuff. So what I'm going to do right now is actually kind of send it a text message so you can sort of see how this works. This is how you're going to debug your program, actually. So if you look in the emulator control window that's underneath the emulator here, and if I click on this, here actually I can probably make this window a little bit smaller now, because you know what's in there. I'm just listening to the noises outside. Okay, so we have a telephony status. I'm not going to worry about that. It's easier to show you text messaging, actually. So if I put in an incoming number, I'm going to call it 555 12 1212, I don't know. And I want to simulate an SMS message. And so I'm going to write the message in here. I'm going to say, this is a message from class. Hello, emulator. And because I've got this emulator up here selected, this is the one it's going to go to. I can run multiple emulators and send it to each one of them. I can send from one emulator to the other emulator as well. That's what we're going to see when I look at SMS messaging, actually. But if I press send, what I should get on my emulator is a notification in a few minutes. Here it is. This is the notification that I got that said, I'm trying to pull this thing down. Here we go. I have 2 unread messages now. And there we go. One of those unread messages. Well, okay, my mouse isn't going to behave well, but for those of you who are watching it, you saw that it said my message title up there in the notification. Let's see if I can get that. Alright, so this is why I don't like the... Oh, here it is. It's actually going to open up. Keep in mind, I do have a lot of stuff running on this computer right now. Yours might run a little bit faster, but don't expect a lot of results out of it. This is the message here. If I click on the message... 555 1212, and I set it at 7:02. I think the time's probably wrong. So this is a message from the class Hello Emulator, and this is the message here. I sent it from the DDMS. So if I'm running an SMS program as an example, and I'm trying to simulate how the functionality works, and I want someone to send me a message, you don't have to call up all your friends. Say, hey, send me a text message. I'm trying to test my program. Nah, I just use the emulator. You know, don't have to bother everybody with that. Alright, the real reason why I'm showing you this today, and let's see if I can get rid of this screen now. Actually, let's just press the back button. Is I want to show you how you send the coordinates, because this is how you're going to send the coordinates. If you're running a GPS program, and this particular program is doing nothing more, this is called map location, and in my map, I'll show you the code in a few minutes. In my map location program, I'm doing nothing more than showing you the latitude and the longitude. I'm putting it out on the screen. It's like Hello World of maps. And actually, it's not even showing you a map. It's just showing you longitude and latitude by looking at the location manager. And so I have to send it the information. So if I go to my emulator and I scroll down to the bottom, excuse me, my DDMS, and scroll down to the bottom, I see another section is called Location Controls. Location controls, in here, you leave it on decimal, put it on manual. You can actually import files and change the settings around, but for what you're doing, to send it a longitude, latitude, here it is. This is for, I cut and pasted, and I put this in to test it before I started the class, actually. I did it yesterday. So this should be, hopefully, San Jose. Should be the ITU location, because that's the address I put in. And now you see, it's in here. I just pressed it. Now it says 37, negative 122. So if I change it, make this 38 as an example, send it. Now it says 38 up here. So now I have, instant access. So I can simulate moving. Actually, let me put it back on 37 because I like 37 better. And this is just showing you integer values. I'm not actually putting the decimal points out there. And we'll take a look at the code in a few minutes. But if I'm testing a map program and I'm trying to simulate walking down a street as an example, I'm going to use the DDMS because I'm not going to take my computer and walk down the street. It's not going to work. Number one, I don't have a GPS signal. There's no location service that's actually working. And the internet's not going to work on it either, actually. And people are going to laugh at me carrying my computer down the street trying to simulate how the phone works. So it's kind of a primitive way, if you don't have a real phone, to, this is why I kind of recommend using a real phone if you can, or a tablet or something. Getting a cheap tablet. You can install it on the tablet, or getting a cheap computer, an Asus. Does that have an oh, wow. Oh, you have one of those nice ones. Those are the icon tabs or whatever. Yeah, Iconic or something?
Transformer.
Oh, Transformer. Oh, that's nice. Get one of those Transformers. You can carry that down the street, not like a stupid. So, or you can simulate through the emulator if you don't have the resources. So let's take a look at map location. Then eventually I'm going back to the boring PowerPoints, but it's easier for me to show it to you in the real program than it is to explain it to you. Right. I think students understand a little bit more by seeing it live instead of PowerPoint anyway, but alright, so to get back to the Java source code, I come back over here and I go Java browsing. I can click on Java browsing and I can go, oh, well, this is the wrong screen. Actually, I want the Java console. I can see projects, packages, types, and I go, oh, that's not right either. I can click on the two arrows and it makes the screen a little bit bigger. It gives me the other two options that fell off the screen here. And the other one I'm looking for is just Java. Java brings me to this screen. This is what's called the view. It controls the view, so I can change it. Actually, I'm sorry, it's called the perspective. I can actually use the window to change the perspective. Down here where it says open perspective, these are the same options that are up here on the right hand side of the screen. You still have, and this is the problem, actually I had a student do this once, change the perspective to the DDMS, closed Eclipse, open Eclipse, back up to the DDMS, close it, open it back, it's still in the DDMS. The perspective will stay until you switch it back. So people go, what happened to my Eclipse? I can no longer edit Java source code. It's because you have to change the perspective back to the Java project in this programming environment versus this window. You can also get at some of the pieces of this window in the Java console window. If you change the perspective back to Java and you look at the bottom here, this is this window that I've been sort of shutting for you most of the time. When you run it, you can get the log information. The log information, you can actually write instances of object log, L-O-G, send it strings, and use it as a debugger to say, oh, I got this far, oh, I got that far. And the logs actually show up in the log. So if I go back up to the DDMS, this is easier to see it from here. And I open up this bottom section, oops. Bottom section, here we go. I can set filters. I can see what's going on. This is the log, and it's easier to see it, I believe, in this window because look how big I can make it versus in the Java window perspective when it shows up on the bottom. All of this stuff, however, most of the stuff, I shouldn't say all of it, most of the stuff can show up on the other perspective. You just have to add it to the bottom. But the log down here, you can put filters in there, so you click on the filter and it'll filter out all of the information that you've put in your program. So as you're writing your source code, you could put a log in that says, this worked, that worked, I got here, got there, and then you can come in here and see how far you got, in terms of looking at the status information. But you'll also see in here everything that the emulator and the debulk manager and the emulator has been communicating. This is a complete log of all of the communication. unable to find stat on iFace, whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me. So this is why I always, I pretty much minimize this window or shut it, because none of this stuff makes any sense. If I have a program that keeps failing over and over again, then I might look in here. Everything is actually color-coded. Stuff in red is critical. Stuff in green is okay. We have warning messages. We have status indicators. We have really crucial stuff here. This is when something failed on it or something. But that's the log feature. I've never actually used anything of the statistics in the upper right-hand corner. I don't actually use this screen at all, but you can actually do memory traces, follow the threads, which thread's running. This DDMS is live per emulator. So when you click over here, I might have made the screen smaller. If I have multiple emulators, in fact, let me load another emulator because I'm going to need another one. And if you haven't figured this out yet, you can run the emulators by right mouse clicking and going run as Java app, Android application, and then it automatically opens up the associated emulator, and then it closes the emulator, and then it opens the emulator, and then it basically opens up a new emulator every time you do that, which is a little time consuming, especially if you're using these emulators. So you can do what I do with the VirtualBox when I open up the emulator and then I just run on that emulator by loading the emulator first. And then you can see if it's the emulator's issue or if it's your application issue that's having a problem. So I'm going to load another emulator because I need to do it anyway for one of my examples. And it's in the AVD Manager, just where I created the emulators to begin with. This is where I'm going to start, unload, change characteristics about the emulators as well. Down here on the bottom, on the top, I've labeled, well, okay, so the target emulators are listed here, and these are the ones that you've been using so far. And when you start using Google APIs, such as the Maps, SMS stuff, some of the other things, you'll find if you're importing, you're using a Google API, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, how you know you're using it, then you're going to need to create another emulator that supports the Google APIs. Let me just show you the process here. If I go new, and the target, then I see all of these come from my downloaded SDKs from my SDK manager. These are all the things I put in here. So I can pick this one, and I can fill it out, and I can add it to my list, instead of picking one of the non-Google API ones. Why they're separated? No clue. Emulators look the same, act the same, run the same. Some support Google APIs, some don't. Some of them work, some of them don't work. It's really buggy, actually, as well. But I'm not a fan of the emulators, so I use my VirtualBox instead. But unfortunately, I haven't found a good image for that. So I'm going to start this one here. If I start this one, I'm going to hit Start. And I'm just going to hit Launch. I'm not going to change any of the settings. When it launches, I can close this window. Here's my emulator. This is the 1.5. You might notice that the 1.5 emulator is the one, if you're going to run Google Maps, you have to have 1.5 or above. Some of the stuff changed significantly. 1.5 is the lowest one supported by the current SDKs. The smaller the emulator, the lower the version, the faster it runs. But the look and feel isn't the same. This looks different. This emulator here looks a little different. In fact, it's based off of an old phone model than this one over here. And what you're hopefully looking at is I've got one of each running. So you can kind of see I can run multiple emulators. And then I set a run configuration. I'll show you that in a few minutes. And then I can pick which emulator I want to run it in. I can even have my VirtualBox emulator loaded as well. However, the more emulators I start running here, and I'm not going to attempt to load the VirtualBox either, the more memory. In fact, you probably can't see it or hear it, probably can hear it, but my fan is now going off on my computer because my processor is working overtime because now I'm loading another emulator. So, but I need to load it. So, alright, so let's take a look then while that's loading in the background, so I have to multitask. Let's go back and take a look at that map location program so we can see what that's doing. So I'm going to go back to Java. Now it's on the now Java showed up on my menu, which is kind of weird. These buttons, they float around. I think whichever one you clicked on the order changes. It shows up on the GUI. Let's take a look at map location. And again, I need to upload these. Actually, you can see my emulator status going on here. I can see it loading down here on the bottom. Okay, so these there's 3 projects that I'm going to show you today. One's called Map Location, the other one's called Google Maps, and the other one's called Show Map. They're different because the first one is just showing you the location services. The second one's showing you the built-in maps example that comes with the API as a sample project. The third one's showing you the Show Map is showing you an overlay. So the overlays are the tricky part. So anyone can put a map out there. You can put a map out there in 5 minutes. I'll show you how in a few minutes. And then I'll show you how to get the key to make it work. But the overlay is another class that you're putting that's going to show on top. What's the overlay? A pin. It's going to be a little mouse. It's going to be directions. It's going to be a dialog box. It's going to be something that shows up, a compass, that shows up on top of the map is the overlay. The overlay is what makes your application more feature-rich. You can show a map, perfect, but what if you showed a map that had a pin here and a pin here with a line through the streets, showing you how to get the point A to point B? Okay, that makes more sense. That makes it more, gives it more functionality. The map is the map. It's always the map. The overlay is your application. The overlay is the pins plus the line, and I have an image of a pin that I'll show you that you actually have to import. You actually have to load in your own images. It doesn't come with anything, so you have to, and you'll find them all over the internet. Little pins of different colors and things. And I'm pretty sure there's a standard, you know, for the colors of the pins, the red and the yellow and the blue. But I have no idea what they stand for. But anyway, let's go back to map location. You see my emulator is still loading. That's why I don't like the emulators. Alright, map location. Let's take a look at the resource file for map location. And let me open up the resource file for map location. Here it is, main.xml. We have to set in the manifest, as you can remember from last week, permissions for the internet. And we also have to set maybe the coarse or fine location on a map. So if my graphical layout is anything of such, it looks like this, and this is what we've been looking at. And another thing I forgot to show you in the previous examples was these, you can actually increase the view. Make this a little bit bigger. So haven't really been building very much live. I've been showing you built applications, but I can't see anything in that little window. So you can make the view bigger by clicking on the plus minuses, bigger and smaller. It doesn't change this view, however. This view stays the same. So what we've learned so far, and we've gotten this down already, we have the linear layout. The linear layout inside of it's just going to have another linear layout. Why it's then that way, who knows? It doesn't have to. Just have one linear layout, but it's sublayered. And here there's just 2 text views. Text views are going to show, and this isn't really using anything. This isn't using the map. There's no map view in here yet. We've just got 2 little text views. Text views are going to show the longitude and the latitude. And then we have one that has the label on it, and then we have one that has the actual value that's going to show on the screen. So this you should be able to create no problemo. It just took 4 text views inside of a linear layout. Looks like that. So we have unknown and unknown. It showed up. When I originally ran that application, you may have noticed it said unknown, hopefully, and unknown before I sent it the message. I'm not even using strings in here. It's just really basic. So what does the source code look like? Map location activity. It's an activity. And the activity that we created, here it is. Make this, actually, I'm going to get rid of this little screen down here because I don't need that. Fan is really going off now. We are going to use location listener and location manager. Because normally, instead of using the DDMS and sending the longitude and latitude, we'd be getting it from the location manager. So DDMS, when we send it, when we press send on there, it's sending it to that object and it's housing it on the phone. So if I have another application on the phone that uses longitude and latitude and uses a location manager, it's already set for that too. So it works in all applications. In fact, you can actually use a simulator for the GPS map programs and everything. It's on the emulator using that same tool. So there's our regular old imports. Don't worry about the imports. Those come automatically as you start loading objects. It'll ask you about it. So we have the text view for, and these are going to be our local reference objects for the longitude field, the longitude, latitude field. And we're going to have an object reference for the location manager, which is what we're going to need to do. So we're asking the location manager, where are we? And then we have a string provider, which we can get from the provider. We can figure out what provider are we working with. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So the onCreate, we are going to set the context view to main. That's that screen I just created with the 4 little text views on it. And longitude and latitude are going to be our local references to those 2 objects. So we can get the location manager here. Location manager is going to be equal to, and we're casting location manager. And we're using a get system service. So from the system service, and this is included on the phone actually. It's a main feature of the phone. We have system services. If you remember the services I talked about, we have notification services, location services is what we're working with today. Phone services, content manager services, all sorts of content providers, all sorts of different services. The context we're looking for in this particular state is the location service. So we're getting the location service set from the get system service method, and we're going to make it equal to the location manager so that we can use the location manager to figure out, well, where is this phone located? Longitude and latitude is what we're getting out of that. So we define the criteria for how to select the location provider, use the default here. Criteria is going to be equal to a new criteria in terms of the provider. So the provider is the location manager, get best provider, criteria false. Provider. What's the provider? Well, remember what I said before, we can get it from the GPS services, we can get it from the internet, we can get it from Google services. Someone's giving us this information. And we have to have it turned on the device. On the emulator, it's turned on automatically for us actually. But if we have it turned off, we're not going to get the provider. The provider's going to be disabled. And depending upon what we turn on, that's where we're getting the provider information from. So we have the provider, then we have the location that the provider is providing us. So the location is going to be equal to the location, last known location of the from the provider. Kind of sounds a little bit redundant, actually. You know, it kind of sounds like, well, why do we have to? We have different pieces to the puzzle. We can actually switch the provider. We can use different providers if we wanted to, and still get the same location. So we do have a little bit of redundancy in terms of the features of the phone. This just gives us flexibility in terms of where are we getting the information from. So, okay, so initialize the location fields here. We're just going to set, take the get the latitude, get the longitude from the location manager and add them, turn them into integers. This is why it got truncated because I'm using integers here. So it got truncated from a, looks like a float value. If I change the data type, it would show up differently on the screen. And then set the text to the longitude and latitude field. Otherwise, put in provider not available. Provider not available. So originally, when I loaded it up, it said location unknown because it found the provider. The provider is the DDMS that's automatically loaded as its provider, and that's what's servicing the information to all the services. So it's kind of you can actually print out the provider. And it says GPS, and you can actually figure out is GPS, is the provider, the GPS signal, is it turned on, is it turned off? Where am I getting this from? You know, is it, you can actually, you know, micromanage that information. This isn't doing very much with that. So request update at startup. So on the resume, if you go through the, and this is kind of interesting here as well because this is going through the life cycle of the object, if you remember. On create, on stop, on pause, on resume. So on the resume, which means once it loads up, puts this, and then it resumes, which means once the application is started, the interface XML file is parsed, context view is set, we have our information. Now we resume loading. And when we resume loading, it's going to go to the location manager, request the location update from the provider. So every time I refresh that screen, it's actually going to refresh my location. In fact, I can actually set a loop that says like every 10 minutes change my location, or every 2 minutes change my location. But on the resume, it's going to run here. And then I remove the location update to when the activity is paused. So I put it in the background, because here's the situation. This guy is pooling, the request location update is pooling resources from the provider. The provider is that GPS. It's what's causing your battery to drain on your phone. So you could create an application that doesn't pause, that constantly just checks everything. And it's really a poorly designed application because your battery is going to essentially die. You can get, let's say for example, the status of the battery, and then use that as an indicator to warn the user. You know, if you run this program, your battery is going to die. You have a low battery. Perhaps you should hook up to a charger before you run this program or something. But no one's going to do that. But anyway, you can remove the listener when the activity is paused, put it in the background so it's no longer listening. Listeners take up resources. On the location change, you can refresh, and this is what this is doing. It's refreshing the interface. So if the location changed and my DDMS, remember if I can never say that word, put a new longitude, latitude, it changed. So it refreshes the screen for me automatically. On status change, well, I don't have any on status change, but I'm working with an interface here. And the interface, I'm implementing the location listener. And for those of you guys who are in the Java class, you know this is an interface that we're implementing. And in the interface, we have this method called, here it is, on status change. And we have to implement it. So, you know, here I'm don't have anything to implement, but I still have to include the empty method body in here. If I pulled it out, it's going to say unimplemented method, because I included an interface that wasn't implemented. And here, just to go back, I'm still extending from activity, so I'm still inheriting from activity. I haven't changed anything yet. So this is a regular old Java / Android application. It's an activity. And so on the provider enabled new provider, create this little toast message that comes out. If I had changed the provider, I don't think it's going to work actually, but this is still loading. I might have to take this one down before the other one will actually load. If I go home here on the, let's see if this is going to work. I may not actually be, oh, here it is. This is good. Let's, if I had the program running and I changed, here we go. If I go into settings, where's settings on here? Oops, no, I don't want navigation. Hesitate doing this actually, because, okay, turn it off, okay. Oh, I should have said cancel. Don't see settings on here. Great. Probably on the next page over. Here it is, settings. This thing just runs like a snail. Hopefully you can see. Oh, actually, this shows up pretty good on that screen over there. At least it looks good, huh? Networks, Bluetooth is off, data usage is off. Location services. Oops. I go into location services. No. Let me go back here. Cancel. Cancel. Ha! Here we go. This is what I was referring to. This is the location service that we're making an instance of the object from. The provider is going to be one of these three. When we change the provider, I hesitate to run this feature, but you can play around with this app if you want. It's going to put up a little toast message that says, your provider has changed. And then if I can switch back and forth between these applications, when I start my location, it's running, and I go here and I change it, let's just see. It should flip up a toast. if it's still running. That's going to tell me that my provider has changed. I think I closed, no, I didn't close the application. It should still be running. Map location is the name of the application. Disabled provider. I don't know if you saw that toast message. I disabled 2 providers by clicking on those buttons, and so the toast actually showed me disabled. I don't know what it was too fast for me to read, but I saw the word disabled. So it's going to tell me, because it's reading from the providers that I've selected, and so the toast is going to bring up the message, and the toast is right here actually. Disabled provider. On provider disabled. So on a provider enabled and then on a provider disabled, it's going to tell me. And then it's going to tell me, I can put up which one I'm using. So of the providers on this particular emulator, I had 3 of them. I selected all of them actually. So it picked one, and it picked the default one, which is probably the first one, the GPS actually. So the location manager knows about the provider, gets the information from the provider, which is why we have both of those 2 objects. And then I highly recommend, I'll make this source code available. Actually, you know what, I'll zip it and I'll put it underneath the video so you guys can see it actually. Or maybe I'll put it in bhacker.com, put the link on the video. But long story short, it's something that you'll need to play with on your computer when you're not running recording software and stuff, so that you can actually get some performance out of the emulator. And you can see, how those 2 pieces fit together. The pieces I'm talking about the provider and also the location services, which are needed for the map utility. So let's look at maps. I don't want to save this. Okay, so actually I'll upload the video tonight, and then I will add a link because I want to clean up the examples a little bit. I'll add a link probably tomorrow or by Wednesday. I'll tell you where that link is. So that one was called map location. I'll keep the names the same so it doesn't confuse. Let's look at Google Maps, which is the next one. And back at the farm, this one is still loading. That's not a good sign. I'm going to cancel this one actually. I can probably run it on this emulator because it's a 1.5, so it'll run on a 4.0 emulator. It just won't run on anything lower. It's just not a problem. All right, so let's take a look here. The first thing I want to do is look at the manifest. And in the manifest, you're going to notice that there's 3 things you're going to need in order for the Google APIs to work. And these are the 3 things you're going to need. Well, actually, it's really just 2, but it's best to put in all 3. You're going to need internet access or internet permissions because it actually takes and goes to the internet when you put in your API key, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. It authenticates you. And then it gives you the ability to essentially use your mapping program. So you need the internet to authenticate the map key. Access find location and access course location is going to give you different levels of granularity on the map. The course location is going to be the outer view. The ability to zoom in is the find location. So you can put a zoom tool with a plus and a minus, and you can actually get both levels in terms. So that's why you normally put all 3 of them in there, because you want both, especially if you're going to do any zooming, for street level versus just map level. So if you go to the Android manifest, you'll notice you can actually just cut and paste and put these in, or you can actually add them using the use. So in the permissions, I don't know if I've covered this yet, but you can go add. If you're going to add, you're going to select the user's permission. If you select OK on the user's permission, the little drop down box will give it to you. So you never actually have to remember what these things are. You just look in here and go, well, let's see, mock location, let's do that one. And I just added mock location. So actually I'm going to remove mock location because I'm not going to use it. So let's not save any changes to this. This is why I say I need to clean this up, because I've done little things in demonstration and some of it's not needed. So, alright, so that is the manifest file. I did not need to do that for the location because I wasn't using maps. I was just looking at the location manager. So if I go into the resource file and I look at the layout, in my layout, main layout, this is the interesting part. If I leave out, and this is where the Google APIs come into place. I don't actually, but I did this on purpose just to demonstrate the point. I don't actually have to preference the relative path for this, but it's coming from com Google Androids.maps, which is the Google APIs that are giving us the map view object. So the object I'm actually putting on the canvas is actually called the map view. And it's, and, you know, instead of just putting, I could take this part out, call it a map view, but then I'd have to include the API. I don't know if it's in there or not, but this is one option you have. It's just, actually, I won't save this, so you don't have to worry about it. You're going to load the API, or you're going to preference it here in terms of the package, which is where it's coming from. Just like the text view, just like any other component you're putting on here has properties. This is the one property that you need for all map views that you're going to use. So you have to get and create this key, this API key, which is not difficult. I'm going to run through the process in a few minutes. And you can basically do what I do is I take a screen capture of the output, save the key, because I use the key in every map view that I create in every application. And I've been using this map view key for a couple of years now. It never changes. If I change computers, then the map view key is going to change. So it's particular to the computer, it's particular to, but it's not particular to the phone. In fact, you can create a map view, put it on a phone, put it in an app, put it in the Google Play, and that works. The key works. So it's just a valid key to authenticate me as a user for the app developer. Why they have it? Good question. I have no idea. And before we finish today, I will show you how to get that key. But the key goes in, and the key goes in, loads into the widget, and the widget is this map view. And this is just a relative layout, just the same as before. If I look at the general layout, I don't really see anything except for the rendering target is 1.5, still loaded. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not going to worry about the map view on the 1.5 target. Hopefully it will work on my other target. So now I'm going to take a look at the source code for this. Oh, this one does have an overlay. Okay, well, let's take a look at the overlay. Before we look at the overlay, we'll look at the gmaps activity. The gmaps activity is very similar to the map location. We still need to get the location. So we have this one here in the example. This is the example actually that comes from the Android SDKs. So what we have in here is we're importing, and we can see we're importing com.google.maps map view. This is where the map view import was. So on that XML, main XML file, I didn't actually have to put com.android, whatever. I could have just put map view on there. If I don't have this in here, then I'd have to preference where it's coming from if I'm not importing it. But I'm importing it here. And so I'm creating a new instance of the object map view because I want to do it just like the text view object. I'm going to look at the reference of this map view inside of my program so I can set the location and do a bunch of things with it. And so I'm going to set the location to ITU in San Jose. This is one for Athens, Greece. This is just, you know, just another example of where you can set the location. Longitude and latitude. This is just like the last example that I showed you. I'm getting it from the service, from the provider, that the location manager is finding. So lo and behold, on the onCreate method, I'm creating a local reference variable map view of the item, and I'm doing a set built-in zoom control method, and I'm turning it on to true. So you can set some methods that are associated with the map view. You're going to look them up online, or you're going to look at the Google APIs. If you go to developer.android.com, you can find all of the different methods that are associated with the map view. And it's part of the regular old SDK. And I'm going to create this overlay object here. The overlay object is going to be my customized object, and this is the customized object over here. The overlay object is going to ride on top of the map. That's why they call it an overlay. And it's going to show the location. It's going to put a pin in the location that's associated with ITU, at my location. So when you create map programs, you're using essentially two classes in general. One activity to produce the map, to produce the application level. The other one to produce the overlay that's going to appear on top of the map. And it's just nothing more than a program on top of the program. You think of it that way. So in here I'm getting at the drawable, which is the drawable class, the higher class for the GUI drawable components, which include the map view. And on the drawable components, I'm adding a new instance of my itemized overlay, and I'm using it. I'm saying this drawable. This drawable is getting at the point. The point is the resource that I have put in the drawable directory, and the point is you know, like what you normally find on a map. It's a point. So I'm going to take this point and I'm going to overlay it on top of the map. And I'm going to stick it in the longitude and latitude of the location that I'm going to set the GPS at, the service at initially. Whoops, that's not what I want to do. I need to close the sucker. Where you're going to find those little points, you're going to go on the internet, probably going to download them or something. They don't come with the program. You'd think that, you know, a mapping program should come with those points. No. I just pulled that one off of a free internet site. But don't steal images. So we have the GeoPoint points, which is a service that's essentially going to give us the location that we're looking at, and the location that the GeoPoint is going to be the longitude and the latitude that we set up here, and these are the longitude and latitude that we set for San Jose, California, for ITU. The overlay is essentially going to overlay the drawable points, and so we have the item that we created, the overlay item is going to be equal to new overlay item. We're going to put another overlay item with the point, and it's going to say, hello, I'm in San Jose, California. That's going to appear on the map. Then essentially what we're doing is we're adding the overlay to the map overlay. So this overlay is going to be added to the map overlay, which is going to be added to the map. So we actually have 3 levels of overlays. We have a custom overlay, we have with the point on it, and we have just a regular old generic overlay that's going to put a point with San Jose, California on it, and you'll see this all come together when I show you the example. Hopefully it'll run. And we're loading and we're adding, so we're adding the overlay item, which is the hello, I'm in San Jose, California, to the itemized overlay, and we're adding the itemized overlay to the map overlay. It's kind of think of that as layers. We add one to the other and the other. Yeah, it's kind of like the swing components, actually. So the map controller we're going to take, and this is the new map controller. This is the map controller. It looks like it's a custom little GUI that shows up with a plus and minus, allows you to zoom in and zoom out on the map. It's called a map controller. So we're creating a new instance of this object called map controller. And we're going to stick the map controller. We're going to animate to point, so it should go to the point that's originally decided by the longitude and latitude. And we're going to set the zoom here to 6. I'm going to set it to actually 20. I'm going to set it to 15. So the zoom is going to essentially be, 6 is actually, I think 1 is like the entire globe, and then you go 2, 3, 4, 5. So the bigger the number, the closer to closer you're zooming in, essentially. If I zoom out too far, it'll be black. If I zoom in too much, it'll be black. So we'll see what happens with that. And the Boolean is route displayed followed by, it's just a method that's stuck in there. It's not really doing anything. It's not even, it's just returning false. It's just going to be a check. So on the customized overlay, it's extended from itemized overlay, which means it's using this as an inheritance, and it's an overlay item. And the overlay item is that pin. So we're setting the context to the current context of the map, and the custom itemized overlay drawable default marker. We're sending the map marker to the customized overlay. So this is the constructor for it that's going to call back and says to essentially bound center button to the particular. So the center of the screen and the button that's going to be bound to it is going to be that little pin, hopefully, that's going to show the location. It's going to be overlaid on there. And on a tap, do something. It's going to set up a dialog box. It's going to set the title of the location that you tap to. But I don't have a tap controller on this. This functionality is not going to work the same on the emulator. The taps don't actually work. And this kind of thumb finger is not going to work either because I can't zoom that way. So instead I put the controller out there. It's going to go plus minus. So you click on the plus and minus and it'll zoom in and zoom out. You can also include that on a regular application. So let's see what the thing works. let's put it together. If I'm running the emulator first, then the emulator should be running in the background, which it is. Very good. And if I create, let me pull this up so I can actually see the console status that's appearing. If I right mouse click and I go to Run As, instead of selecting Run Application, I do Run Configuration. I can set the configuration to do manual instead of automatic. And in that particular case, on the target screen here, instead of going automatic, oops, I want this one here. I click it on manual, and it allows me to pick whichever running emulator happens to be compatible with it. So I don't have to actually load a new emulator. It basically, if you go to a manual mode instead of going to an automatic mode, it enables you to use one emulator for all of your testing. And keep it, load it once, keep it up running, and then just keep going to it. Same way that I have been accessing the virtual machine in the other examples that I've been giving you. Oh, here we go. Oh, here it is. So it appears that this 1.5 example is okay, because I have a green mark here. If I have an X here, it would mean that this emulator is incompatible, and it's not going to work. It appears to be thinking it's going to work. So on the bottom, it looks like I'm installing correctly. Installing Google Apps. So I'm going to be patient and see what happens. The other app went away. I see the main screen. If I look down here at the bottom, I see it's installing Google Maps APK. I'm going to be patient, starting the activity. So I'm going to click back on this emulator. So this started the activity.
So it doesn't restart the emulator?
Doesn't restart the emulator, yes. If you do it this way, if you run it manually. I still have to wait 5 minutes for it to show, though. And that's going to be 5 minutes, I don't know. I was hoping. It looks like it's going to show any minute now, doesn't it? Because it says starting activity. It's going to load. I know it's going to load. I have patience. I have faith. It's going to load. No, that's me. I was seeing if it was already loaded. See, I noticed that map. Oh, it's gone. I noticed that the map location was on there. Unless it's on the second screen. No. Widget previewer. Well, I'm going to be stupid. Do it one more time. Warning, application does not specify level. See, sometimes, actually it was called Gmaps before. Okay, there it goes. There's my point. There's my map. Okay. Phew. Where's my overlay? My control, here's the controller. So I had to click on it to get the controller. This is the instance of the object of the map controller. The map controller, let me just show you what these things are actually. Is this one here, the map controller. New map controller. You don't actually have to tell it to go to the map, but if you click on it, you see the map controller. That's the map controller. The pin is the overlay. The compass is missing. It should, well, oh, there it is. I had to double click. It says, hello, I'm in San Jose, California. That's the other, I'm sorry, this is the different, this example shows two overlays. The one is the pin, the other one is the status message, but you're supposed to do it on a touch. I had to double click on the, now how do I get rid of it? There we go. So I should be able to zoom into the location because I have the find location. Here it is. And it should give me the course location. Oh, look at that. It says International Technological University on the bottom. There it goes. A little graduation hat, too. Isn't that cute? There's our building. It does exist on San Fernando Street. Oh, according, and look, there's a county transit around here, too. All right. So I could change the longitude and latitude. It would bring me to a different starting location. It was on the on pause that actually brought me to this location, and this is the overlay. And the pin I had to put in myself. So if I give you this project, you'll have this pin. And this pin I pulled off of a open source free pin, so you can probably feel free to reuse it. I don't know what red means though. I know that there's different color codes to the pins. There's yellow, red, blue. I don't know, maybe red is destination and maybe red is blue is en route or something. I don't know. But that's working. Very good. I could show you what would happen if I took the map key out. What would happen is nothing would happen. It would show up with nothing, essentially. So I'm going to leave that emulator running, and I'm going to close this project. And I'm going to go to the next one. We still have plenty of time. I can show you the map key. So the other one I wanted to show you was called, I think Google Maps is one I just showed you. I had Maps Demo, which... Maps Demo is the one that comes with the Google APIs. So if I come up here, let me just show you. Actually, I'll leave you to look at map demos on your own because it's going to be very similar. I didn't realize that Google Maps actually had the two overlays to it. So they're all done the same way. All of the XML files look the same. They all have a map view on them. The map view takes an API key that shows the map. And your activity file loads the overlays. The overlays, well, the activity sets the longitude and latitude, the service provider information if you're going to use it. This particular program didn't actually use it. It just set it. Creates instances of the overlays. The overlays are nothing more than objects that are going to be loaded on top of the map, such as that pop-up window and the pin. And every single map program is going to run in the same kind of fashion. So if you're interested, and if these programs don't work in your emulators, you can get one that's very similar to that one, not exactly the same, but very similar by going New, Android Project, Project from Existing Sample, next. Click on the Google API. So if I click on the Google API here for 4.03, next. In here, from the Google API, there's supposed to be one that says Map. Let's go back. Click on this one, Google. Actually, I have the wrong one clicked. I'm sorry. I needed Google API, not Android API. Because these are going to be showing me the default Android projects, which is what I saw a few minutes ago. Here we go, Maps Demo. Maps Demo is coming. This is the same one that's in here. So I'll leave you to your own devices on that one. You can get Map Demo for, that was for the 4.0. It's actually for all of the different APIs. So depending upon which SDKs you have installed, you're going to get a different list here. If you click on the Google option for the API, you're going to get Maps Demo. Maps Demo is going to show you something very similar to what I just showed you a few minutes ago, but it's not going to have a little text pop up, and it's going to have a compass, I believe, on there instead. I can try to load the Maps Demo. Let's see if I can actually even get this to load. Oops, it's going to load. Yeah, this one, let me just shut that for a second, load it manually. Oh, there it goes. I believe this one's going to have a menu because it uses an intent to switch between two separate activities. Installing Maps Demo. Let's just give it a few minutes. The other one loaded successfully, so perhaps we'll have some luck with this one as well. This is, oh, here we go, Maps Demo. This is the demo that comes with the API that you can load automatically from the examples. And it does have a menu. This one actually uses an intent to switch between two different activities that have the same, that use the same overlay. So if I click on a map view, Tulsa. Okay, great. If I go back, There's no overlay on that. This one has the compass, map view and compass. The compass, I believe, is running as an overlay. Uh-oh. I have a squiggly little... Well, this is what I was afraid of. The good thing is I'm done with the examples. I'm going to show you how to get the app key, API key in a few minutes here. So that little round thing is not a good indicator. Okay. Ah, good. Sometimes it stops my recording software. That's what I was afraid of, because the entire lecture would be lost completely. Okay. Now, the one key that you're missing, I'm not going to go back to that. I'll do the PowerPoint next time. The one key that you're missing is the key. So there's a two-step process to getting the key, and I put together a little cheat sheet for you. And I called it Android Maps Doc, and I'll include this as well as a link. In order to supply something into that app key category on the map view, and you have to do this for every single map view that you create. It's always the same key, only one key per computer. You have to generate the key. The way you generate the key is you run a little program that's going to be essentially on a piece of information that's on your computer. So you're beginning with the release 1.0, you need to apply for a map key before you can generate maps, use the map application. First, what you're going to do is have to generate and run a program called debug key store. What I did is I wrote down, and it's different for Windows than it is for the Mac. If you're on a Windows system, the directory is going to be different. This little cheat sheet, you can read through it. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can read through it, and I'll include it in there so you can follow the instructions. You can also go to the website and follow the instructions from the websites. And the website's going to give you the same information. And the website, so you can see what you do need to do. You get a piece of information from your computer that's generated, and you go to developers.google.com/Android/Maps API sign up. And you have to sign up, and they give you this key. So in order to sign up for the key, you have to supply them with a piece of information. And in order to get the piece of information, you have to run a key generator kind of thing that gives you a code. So if you read through here, you can get all of the information. What you're going to do is going to cut and paste your certificate MD5 finger here. How do you get that? Well, you find on your computer, and I put this in a little screenshot to save myself here. If you're on a Mac computer, it's going to be in a different location than it is for a Windows computer. But in your Android key tool, you're going to run a key tool command on an Android file. It's going to be a debug key. Further down the road here. Let me actually just show you where this is. It's in a hidden directory. And believe me, I have detailed instructions in that README file that I'll give you. This one here, if you read through this, it'll tell you step by step. But first you're going to find the testing application. You're going to locate the SDK debug certificate. The debug certificate is what's stored on your computer. Locate in a default directory. Here's the directory if you are a Windows user. It's going to be in the Android directory. If you're a Mac user or a Linux user, you'll find the debug directory in this directory. So you change the directory to that directory. If you see the screenshot here, actually, let me just do it live. I don't want to generate another one though. I believe it might be off of root, but I'm not sure. No, it's not going to be off of there. Let me see what I did in here first. Hold on one second. What I need to do is edit this. Be hacker, I changed the directory. Oh, you know what? Okay. see it right here. I'm sorry. Okay, I know, but I'm gonna go through this keygen thing first, and then we'll stop. But yes, thank you for letting me know. Thank you. I totally forgot that I told you to let me know. Okay, on a Windows machine, you're going to go to the Android directory. On a Mac computer, you're going to go to this one here, which is the funny part, which took me a few minutes to remember where it was located. It was located, it's the same directory location as my Android program. So I created an Android directory. When I installed the SDK, it created this invisible directory that it's in the instructions, when you look at the instructions. If I list out what's in here, I see debug key store. I generate a code from this by running a key tool on this that gives me an MD5 code that I cut and paste and I stick in that window, and then I get a key back from from Google. And that key is what I cut and paste and I use. So I can use the key tool.exe on a Windows machine, or key tool without the .exe on a Mac machine. So you run this here, and let me just cut and paste it. I'm going to have to take out the .exe actually. Yeah, it's at the beginning. Hold on one second. You can take it out of the README file like I just did a few minutes ago. If you're on a Windows machine, you can run the command as is. If you're on a Mac machine, you have to take off the .exe. It will generate an MD5 code from that debug from, hold on a second, from this file right here. Oops, exception. Key store file does not exist in Android. Oh, because I have to change it. Well, okay. In here I ran it. There's a little screenshot that I ran here. Here we go. Command not found the first time I ran it. Oh, probably because I had the wrong directory in there as well. Let's see. Oops. Okay, well, it generated at that time. Or did it not? Oh, command not found. Oh, probably because I left off the key in the beginning. Okay. Well, if you type this and you stick it in, I'm too lazy to type it right now. It took off this first part when I ran it. This is the command here. If you have to put on exe if you're looking at on a Windows system for the key tool. It has an exe extension on it. You'll get this that comes out. It says certificate fingerprint MD5. This is what you cut and paste. So you take this out of your output that's generated from running key tool on your debug key that's in your Android directory. This you take, you copy it, you go to that website, you paste it in here. I don't want to run it again because I don't want to mess up my key. I already have it run from this computer. I don't want to do it twice. So this is the key that was generated from running key tool. And at a very slower pace you can read through this README file. Actually, it's online as well. You can read through that. When you load it in and you press OK, this is what you get. And what you're getting here, it says your key is blah 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 blah. Save this. Because here's what you do. You take this and you go copy. And then you go into your Android program. And you paste it in where it says API key. And that's the missing piece. That's the key that you need. So this is right. I don't want to do it again because I don't want to mess it up. But if I go into the resource here, and I go into layouts, map view. Hopefully it's the same key. Let's see if it is the same key actually. I'm just going to paste it here. Yep, it's the same key. Very good. I have the right key at least I'm using. But you can see that's where I got the key from. So the key comes from that file that they, well this is the, there we go. This is a screenshot of the screen once I pressed OK after putting in that MD5 key from here. So if I go into this URL is also in the README file, the instruction file. If I come down here and I paste that code that I get from my computer into here, I press Generate Map Key, that's the output screen that I get. So I've saved a print screen of the output screen so that every application I run for the next 10 years or however long as I keep using the API key, I can reuse this key over and over and over again for each one of my maps. So every map that I do. And it's because it came from this computer, in this directory, the Android hidden directory, or the Android directory if you're on a Windows machine, has that one file. That one file is this one here, the key store file. And the key store file, you're generating a code, MD5 code from that, using the command that's in here that I was trying to cut and paste, but I was too lazy to retype. If you look at this file as well, which is located on the bhacker.com website, and I will also make sure I include it in with the project files for those people who haven't generated their key yet. This is all self-inclusive. It will run through step-by-step on how to create the key as well. So, because I know I kind of went through a kind of a fast kind of thing. Also in here, there's a little tutorial on how to display the map. So it just takes and creates a blank Hello World project. You cut and paste and you put your map key in here. And it'll test to make sure that your map key is working properly. So I highly recommend actually going through this little Hello Map program, and once you generate the key, to make sure that the key works. So I will definitely make sure that this one here, in fact it probably is, let me just check real quick. It might already be posted from the last time I taught this course, but let's see. Just find it real quick, supplemental notes perhaps. Don't see it. I'll make a new listing for it so it's obvious, and I'll let you know about it on Wednesday for those people who are still looking for it, who haven't found it. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you today. I didn't get through the PowerPoints. But, do you guys want to see the PowerPoints today, or are you going to wait till Wednesday? I don't know. What you guys had? Did you guys have you had enough, or do you want more? Wednesday? Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Alright, well then we'll end for today, if you've had enough. And Wednesday, if you can actually see if you can generate your key code, see if you can get a regular map program working, that'll be good, because I have some more advanced maps that I can show you on Wednesday, and then we'll move above and beyond to probably SMS messaging or something new. So now is the time in the course where we start looking at different features, because we pretty much have gone through basically all of the basic Android activity stuff. So now we look at services, notifications, SMS, mapping, and all the features. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.